back to painting and decorating Monday morning, and like I promised, a video on putting the coving up. So I'll just give you a quick run over this wall. I've actually put bin primer on the bare plasterboard, and I've actually foamed around all the edges. So we'll have a quick look at that, and then I'll show you all the gear I'm going to use, and then we'll crack on. Like I was saying, around the gaps in the plasterboard I've filled with some foam. There's some edging trim going on, and then that's getting filled. Windowsill's going to go on yet on top of that, and then the bottom edge is going to get filled. All the joints, again, I've made them how I want them, and then I've actually infilled with foam, so they're nice and secure, and they just want some filler going over, and they'll be perfectly smooth when all that's done. And then the lining paper. That bit across the top doesn't matter to cut back, because I'm actually putting the coving over that. Right then, let's have a look at the other stuff. There you go. So this is the coving I'm using, proper plaster coving. Looking at them edges, look at that. Yeah, it's already blown. So you can cut it back as neat as you can, but dealing with these edges is very difficult to get them perfect. So I'll show you how to get them perfect. Usually I never butt up. I always leave a gap so I can actually put some foam in and fill. Same with the corners sometimes. It's so difficult to get the corners perfect. You're better off just leaving the gap, filling it, and then it's perfect, and you don't get any cracks coming back. Spirit level, important. I've got my mitre block just to give me a guard, really. That's the adhesive I'm using. I've got to mix that with some clean water. Tape measure, Stanley knife, a couple of pencils in case you drop one, filling knives. I've got a drill for some screws, and that's for screwing the top edge of the coving into the ceiling. And then I've got nails to nail the bottom edge into the plasterwork. Depends what you're going into. Plasterwork, you use nails. Plasterboard, you use screws. If it's a smooth surface you're putting this onto, you have to actually score the background so the adhesive has a key, because it can come loose on shiny backgrounds, or if just bare plaster, you're better off scraping it so it's rough, and then the adhesive sticks a lot better. In my case it doesn't matter, because it's that rough, it's going to stick. Now remember, I've already sealed all that with PVA. Right, now where to start putting your coving up. Obviously you can have an idea of where your joints are going to end up, and you can make them so that you use the least amount of coving, because at the end of the job you shouldn't be able to see the joints anyway. Now what I usually do is I find the lowest part of the ceiling. So if the ceiling's dipping down into a corner, that's where you want to put your first piece of coving on and work off that. Now you also only work on one line, so you mark the size of the coving and where it's going to sit, and then you use your spirit level underneath the coving, and that is the part that's got to be nice and straight against the wall. You're better off, because at the top of the ceiling it can bow sometimes like that, and if you try and push it and do anything with it, it pushes your coving out of line. So sometimes your filling can go from like that to like that on your ceiling. It goes, and it's not that you're doing a problem, it's just the simple fact that the ceiling is not level, it's not flat, so it's all bowed. Right, let's crack on. What I'm going to do is cut a section off the size of my spirit level, so I can go around the room and just check how level things are, and it also helps you to know where you're starting. Wowza. So this is pretty bad, this ceiling. I mean, that's not an optical illusion where you see the plasterboard going up. The ceiling is unreal, to be honest. Let's have a look round. I mean, I don't know if you can see how much, it just literally sags in the centre. The bows that are in it are unbelievable. I'll get the spirit level up here. Let's have a look at that. All that flat with the ceiling there. So I've got it flat there. Let's check the bubble. That's the bubble. Look at the gap there. Going off. So whatever happens, we're going to end up with a massive chunk of filler at the top edge of the coving to get it straight. So what I'm going to do on this one is possibly start in the centre there with a long length across, because that's where it really dips. So it kind of, you keep it straight from there. Then you have to have a big fat edge at the top, and possibly on this new wall we may end up with a big fat edge at the top as well, coming across to keep it the coving level across. But you know, this is the things you have to do when you're putting coving up on old buildings. If you ever come to put a wallpaper up and it's got a pattern, you want that bottom edge there straight, so then your pattern looks perfect around the room. Anyway, this is going to be fun. When mixing this, clean water, add the powder to the water and mix it up. You want it not over thick, but you certainly don't want it thin. It's got to have a good consistency. Like when you're using polyfiller, get it mixed right for a deep hole. That's what you want, because if it's too soft, everything's just going to sag. You have about 40 minutes working time, so again it's like polyfiller in a way. That's ready now, and that's how thick you want it. You can see the peaks there. It's got to have that. Right, what I'm going to do is apply some to the wall. I've marked out where the coving's going, so I want to apply some to the wall to build it out a little bit, and apply some to the edge of the coving on just the edges, that edge on that edge. You've no need to do anything in the middle, just the edges. And you don't have to do it all the way along, just do it in sections, you know, every half a foot thereabouts, a little dog. So, putting coving up on your own, it's not easy. Not easy at all. What we're going to do is let's go along, put a bit of this across that bottom edge. And I'm going to put some on the top edge. I'm going to do that to where I've marked it. Now this is the tricky bit. Doing this on your own is never easy. Never easy. I've got a sensor mark to go work off. I've got my hammer, my drill, spirit level near me. Because you need about 10 hours to do this, but here we go. Right. Centre mark. too bad at all, that. What I'm going to do, I'm going to give myself a little bit of a space under that coving there. It's got good suction though. What I want to do there is make sure I can find a decent edge. There's enough gap, right, for when the insulation paper goes on underneath. So I'm going to get the spirit level on this in a second. I'm just going to put this underneath. Make sure they bite though, sometimes you can be all over the place. Come on. You all said it was easy. What I'm going to do is put another fixing in on this side. Right. So I'm just tacking this in for the minute, just to see how level it is. Just going to pop one in the ceiling. I'll just help. I'm just going to check that with the spirit level. Now what you want to do is make sure you've got no adhesive or any lumps in the way. Yeah. Bang on that. Right, so basically I'm going to continue to make sure this is secure and make sure I've got enough distance underneath so when my insulation paper goes on, I've got a nice little bit of coving, you know, so it all looks nice and neat. Right, that's it for this piece. I will show you doing a joint and then a corner piece and then filling it up. Doing good, doing good. This small piece at the end, what I'm going to do, measure it, leaving a decent gap between so I can fill it with a bit of foam and a bit of filler to get the joint perfect. The corner, measure to the corner and then you want to cut your mitre off the deepest point. So, you know, you're going to be cutting back, whichever, yeah. You're going to be cutting it back, so your deepest edge will be the bottom one, but don't worry about that, you just measure from the bottom to the corner and then cut your mites at your 45 degree to get your 90. And again, it doesn't have to be perfect because you can foam it and fill it and it won't crack. You can see that there. 45, 45. And you can see the pencil mark lining up more or less. So I'm going to cut that. Doesn't have to be perfect. If it doesn't fit, you can shave a bit off because you're filling it up. That's the great beauty of this. Doing really well. Managed to get this section across there done. That's, you know, the adhesive has gone off. So you're looking about 40 minutes that's took me. You can do a room like this with coving 4 hours when it's a difficult room like this. I just thought I'd show you this line here. I've just put that on spirit level across and it's perfect for where I want the coving. But you can see what I was on about. If you want to keep it level, you end up with the ceiling running out sometimes. But don't worry about it because it's only a little bit, really. It's not that much, it looks a lot. But once that's filled and painted, you won't even notice it. That one is the important edge. And you can see I've even tried losing it a little bit because that is the true level. So I've lost a little bit in this corner just to make that a bit thinner. Right, now what I'll show you next is how to fill the joints and fill all the edges proper, because this stuff, it's only adhesive, it's not actually the finish, so don't be using that. Okay, so that's the coving up. Wowzer, that took some doing. Don't know if you can see that bow in that ceiling there. It's unreal. So have a quick look round. Obviously I've got a bit of filling to do yet, but it was better to get the coving up. Like I say, I never butt my joints up because I like to fill them and they never crack out because a bit of foam in them and be sorted. Quick look across this one. That was the last piece I just put up. I've actually screwed it in to make sure it's safe. Show that last part there. I mean, you know, it looks rough, but I know it's perfect. Because when I've done my filling and painting, it's going to be perfect. And just so you know, spirit level there. So, corner to corner on that coving. Look at the bubble. Beautiful. Corner, corner. Right, so that's it for today. 3 o'clock finish. I'm going to clean up and tomorrow I'll show you how to finish it with all the filling. Tuesday morning, coving's dry. I'll show you all that nice and solid and not going anywhere that. So first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to show you, the rest of this video will be on this section here, showing you this joints, the corner, and how to fill in the top and bottom. Now yesterday I made sure everything was nice and smooth, there wasn't any filler left proud on anything, wiped it back. So first of all, what I'm going to do, if you look at that edge, it's all still furry. But what I do is just cut back the paper slightly, so it's like a V shape. See what I'm doing there. Just be careful with the bottom edges and stuff, corners. Same with the other side. And then once you've done that, that needs sealing with some bin primer, or you can use a waterproof emulsion, a scrubbable emulsion, a decent paint. You want it waterproof, because once you start putting water near this paper and filling and stuff like that, it just keeps working up and working up. So the sooner you can seal that, the better. So I'll cut that other side off, seal it, and then I'll show you the next step. Same with the corner, just neaten the edges up. When you're using your bin primer, make sure you get the burr plaster, and then make sure you feather the edges out in the direction you're going to paint. Very important, that is. It's all about foundations and getting your foundation right, and then building up from that. That's perfect, that. Next stage, you've guessed it, a little bit of foam. So I'm ready for the foam. I'm not going to remove the screws till this foam has started to cure proper. Once I've removed the screws, what you want to do is, see that there? The paper is all pulled out. You want to make sure you push all the paper back in. You can use the back of your think, you know, but it's better to have the paper actually sat in the hole. So when you push your filler in, it pushes the paper in, and it's a lot neater. Right, some foam for there. Now you can allow a bit to go into the back of it, and then just fill the gap. There we go. Same with the corner. Now what I'm going to do now is let that cure for a bit, take the rest of the screws out, and then I'm going to give the whole coving a coat of Valspar matte emulsion. I'm going to thin it out a little bit, and then it's all sealed. And then what I'm going to do is some of these deep bits I'm going to fill using the foam. So I'll show you once all the foam's in. It's just 11:15, so I'm doing really well. I'm going for an early dinner while this foam cures. I don't like being in a room when this stuff's curing. Make sure it's well ventilated anyway. But, so after dinner, I'm going to cut the foam back and get it filled up, and do any of the other bits of filling, and then hopefully get the piece of skirting board back on. And we're doing very well then. I'll get some side trim for that window as well. Do some filling on that. That's what I'm doing now. Go and get some side trim. That foam is cured now, so I'm ready to cut that back. And I've also got the trim for up the window, so I'm going to put that on as well. Right, that's the foam cut back, and I've also done the patch plastering on them too. Like that. So next job, start filling around the coving with the polyfiller. And like I said, I'll show you that corner there and that joint. When it comes to the filling, you want a really good blade with a square edge, you know, nice corners. So make sure you push your filler right in. What you want to do, just be careful when you get to the edges and you're dragging back, because sometimes you can break the edges more. So I always do the centre first like that. Again, I'm working with one hand here, and then I'll work in the top and the bottom. You've got to be really neat in everything you do, because if you're not, all you end up doing is making more work for yourself, because you've got to sand everything back. And the less filler, the neater it is, the less sanding and the quicker you work. They're never easy to do, these corners, but take your time. Try not to get loads of filler everywhere, because that's your nightmare. Trying to sand the filler down when you finish is the hardest bit. So you can fill the hole up and then you can neaten it off totally, so it's nice and smooth. Just take the time. You probably will have to do 2 fills on it, but don't worry about that, because generally you have to do 2 fills, because the first one sometimes soaks in a little bit and you're left with a dip. That's not too bad for the first one there. Just try that up there. Get some more of this filler in and then I'll bring it up a bit closer. You can see how I'm going to neaten it off. A little bit more in that corner up there. So hopefully I'll be able to show you now. So you can see there, I've actually filled it all in and there's a little bit of a mess on that side, but generally it's not too bad. So from what that is now, let's just get it. I'm just going to try and smooth everything. It's difficult. You've got to make sure your blade's in the right direction when you're doing some of the movements. In fact, probably a smaller blade at this point would be better, but never mind. And just clean that edge off there. Neaten that top up. Okay, I'm happy with that for the time being. There we go. Well, I'm going to carry on now filling, but that's the end of the video for this one. Anyway, how to put coving up and fill it. It's looking good, looking good. Now, just for the last thing, you can hear the traffic out there. Let's just shut the window. I'd say that's pretty good. I could sleep to that.